Hell of a job there, Taylor. Keep going. I know it's not easy. They are V8s, they are muscle cars, they are loud. But, guys, let's talk a little bit more about the history of NASCAR because, you know, we're celebrating if West Coast racing began at Pebble Beach in 1950, NASCAR formed in, what, 1948?
Yes.
I want to say. And so the blossoming of, if you like, the sort of coming together of two different worlds, one very much international and America mixed, and then very much what the Francis were doing was all American and all stock. But in its infancy, you know, you had these two sprouts coming up. International racers like Bruce McCann coming over here, like, you know, Sterling Moss, and then Phil Hill doing what they were doing, Carroll Shelby. So you've got that world coming up. But then this world also was starting to make inroads, and very quickly, as more and more tracks were built, as people got the idea of it. Now, I know stock car racing and NASCAR goes all the way back to moonshine running, but at the same time, the popularity, television coverage, sponsorship, and names like Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty, and obviously this man, Jeff Gordon, back in the day, but a little bit later on, Jimmy Johnson. NASCAR's had periods, but I just want to go right back to the very start of NASCAR and say, you know, if you like, am I right in saying that there were kind of two forms of American racing coming from two very different angles that were all growing at the same time in the mid-50s?
Yeah, absolutely, completely different, but both with great growth over the years, and certainly put on great shows. And it, you know, certainly wasn't just some Southern hillbillies. It was certainly more than that. It became, you know, really an international thing. I mean, people follow it today from all over. It's a massive industry, what they have today. Cars are certainly very safe to drive. And from a collector standpoint, there are enough of them out there. Unless you have a Dale Earnhardt car, or unless you have a Jeff Gordon car, or really one of the big name, well-documented cars, they're quite affordable too. So they're great fun, they're very safe, and they're very, they're fast. There's no two ways about it.
Well, Mike, just to remind people, you were supposed to be out in a Dale Earnhardt car. Tell me what happened to the car first, but then tell me about how you came in collection of it and a little bit of history of it.
Well, it was sort of a fluke. I mean, we put a fresh engine in it here last 3-4 months ago, and we ended up with a stuck valve or a spring, and it was just too. I hate to say it, you get to a point with these cars because the Dale Earnhardt that I own has the original drivetrain, so it means it's got the original block, it's got the heads. The car has quite a history, and I'll try to make it as brief as possible, but it goes.
Carry on. We want to hear.
It goes back to, I was here in 2013. I was running a black Shelby, one of my first couple races, and I had a gentleman come up to me in the pits as I came off the track, and he said, "I have a black car." And I said, "Okay, well, what do you got?" And, you know, you always want to listen to what these people are saying. But he goes, "I got Dale Earnhardt's 1993 Chevy Lumina in my garage up 80 miles north of here." So that got my attention, obviously. And I think they're getting ready to start, aren't they?
Yeah.
Let's watch a little bit of this here.
All right, green flag waves, Group 6 qualifying, the historic NASCAR stock cars, 81 to 2013. So a nice smorgasbord and plenty of history in that time. And it's the local man in the 24, Jeff Gordon, leading the way. But obviously, Jeff's not at the wheel this time. But it's great to tell the stories of those that drove the cars. That's how we like to do it. Tim Lynn in this one, leading the way at the moment, as he should. And celebrating Jeff Gordon, who was born just across the way here in Vallejo. And in his own way, changed the face, just as Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. did, of NASCAR with his exploits in NASCAR. And great to see the 24 leading the way.
So the track that they're running, or the setup they're running, is what they ran up until I think 8 or 9 years ago. So it does include the carousel. I think they went back to that and tried that a couple years ago, which we find, I think the NASCAR drivers like that setup better. But it sure is a lot of fun. And
it sure puts on a great show.
It puts on a great show, yeah.
Yeah, no question. And of course, now in modern day NASCAR, we are seeing 7, 8 road courses. So we're quite used to NASCAR having to create a road course car. I don't know if either of you would want to talk about the difference, the main difference, obviously, between oval racing and racing on the roads like this, or the road courses like this. But it's a very different setup and almost a different car, isn't it?
And I'll add one thing, and then I want Chris to add to it. But up until about early 1990s, the NASCAR teams were small and underfunded. They would take a short track car and do a conversion to a road track car.
Interesting.
My car, and from 1992, 1993, is about when they started to dedicate a car for road racing. And from there on, it was all set up. But I'm going to add Chris to the setup. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're running an oval car, you're set up to obviously go in a circle. You're putting weight on the inside track of the car, or actually outside the track. With the road race setups, you're trying to balance the car. You're trying to get the car to be able to turn left and right, unlike the obvious of turning left all the time, which they've of course started, as Mike was talking about, where they were building specific cars just for road racing. And these are cars like you see out here, I'm sure, maybe not the number 9 car back in the day, but a lot of the newer cars probably are specifically built just for road racing.
Yeah. And you are looking at a Bill Elliott 1988 Ford Thunderbird, driven by the great Bill Elliott. Of course, his son now currently racing. And I had the pleasure of meeting Bill a couple of times. He's been to a few Trans Am races, and of course, Chase has done a few Trans Am races as well as his regular NASCAR time as well. And great to see these cars. And Sonoma, of course, has a huge history with NASCAR.
Yeah, and a lot of these cars you're seeing, I'm going to venture to say, besides the Earnhardt car, I would say 3 or 4 or 5 cars have either won at Sonoma during the day, or a lot of them had participated at Sonoma and Watkins Glen. Those were the 2 road course tracks they had.
Yeah, I was looking up yesterday. Kyle Petty in 1997, one of his cars is out there. He got a 13th here at Sonoma. And who else? At 1998, Jeff Gordon won for Hendricks in the 24. And Kyle Petty was 26 that year.
Right.
So, and another Richard Petty car that's out there finished 21st at Sonoma. So not a great result for them. Talking to Bill Elliott, I was reading in 1992, Bill Elliott, 4 races out of 5 at the start of that season, and then finished off with a 5th win on the last race of the season. So a big year for him in 92. Bill Elliott, one of the greats.
And I think Earnhardt, his first road course victory was in the Lumina in 1995, I believe. That he chased that win for 10 or 15 years before he was successful at it. So it didn't come easy for him.
Yeah, what amazes me about NASCAR is that you think with the calendar they have and the amount of racing they do, and then the playoffs, you'd think, wow, you're going to get a bunch of points. But it's amazing when you look, even the greats, nobody's winning 4 or 5 races in a row anymore. I mean, Kyle Larson's done a pretty good job in the recent history of, somebody's just gone bang, I think. But whatever that was, because I thought it was a bit of smoke, but it wasn't. I think somebody's let go there. But that's a Michael Waldrop car we were looking at, Clint Boyer, who drove that. But yeah, just to that point, it's amazing just how hard week in, week out it is to win a NASCAR race.
Seems today it's very hard. Where back in the 90s and early 2000s, you would have what they call the hired gun come in from road racing. Boris said, God, just list of Tommy Kendall.
Yep.
And they would come out and really put a great show on and run up front. And that has changed. Each one of these new NASCAR drivers, you have to be, and you have to be up on your game with road racing.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's just very, very, you can't get a substitute in there and do it. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah. And, I was a big Formula One fan in Montoya's time, and when Montoya went to NASCAR, I thought, oh, he's got this. This is, and he had a long career in NASCAR.
Yep.
He had some highlights. He was always running well. Target car was always there, but he never dominated like he did in Formula One at times. And so, and then when Marcus Ambrose came in, I thought to myself, oh, okay, here's a guy who's going to do a Shane Van Gisbergen, who has done what I thought he would do.
Yes, without a doubt.
Because of V8 supercars being used to road races and those guys used to those cars and how they interact. But it never really happened, so it just shows you how hard it is to be competitive in this field.
You could see the like Van Gisberg and Ambrose and those guys. It's all about feet work, using your feet and using the brake and the gas at the same time, and the clutching, and the old NASCAR guys that were running for years, they just use the clutch and the brake and the gas as independently. So those guys came over from overseas and they nailed it with their feet work and made their cars a lot quicker.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, as you know, Jenson Button's had a run. Kimi Räikkönen's had a go. Daniel Kvyat's had a go. So there's been some international drivers who have given NASCAR a run and still do. I think Jenson Button's planning on doing more. There's the 43 I was talking about. John Davis in
Beautiful
that Pontiac
car.
Oldsmobile. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Richard Petty finished 21st here in that car many years ago. But yeah, it's not an easy transformation. A lot of people are wondering whether Daniel Ricciardo, who's just retired from Formula One, will turn perhaps to NASCAR. I'm sure I'll have a quick word with Jenson, see what it's all about. But we welcome it because it's such a different discipline and so hard to not master. I don't think anybody's mastered it. There's a few that have come close. But especially now in the modern era, there is more openings with more road course races that people who are intimidated. For example, Roman Grosjean said, I don't know if I want to do ovals, but now he's doing ovals, of course, in Indy. But there's a lot of drivers who go away from single-seater racing and wonder whether they could throw their hand in at this. And now with sims and so on and so forth, you can actually get up to speed on iRacing. I was listening to Scott Speed talking about preparing for Sonoma because he hasn't raced here on iRacing. And I think quite a few drivers, and it was interesting to hear how many young drivers are taking to this.
I think that what you're seeing here right now is it's one thing to do a sim event or a sim race. I guarantee you right now in that car, it's probably 120, 25 degrees. It's hot out here. The stamina. But these guys, even in this historic group, I mean, they're hanging it out. I mean, this isn't just driving around and three-quarter speed. I mean, they want to get out front.
And I know I speak for 90% of the audience who don't get to sit in a race car ever. I'm one of them, and I have, though, been very lucky in the job I do to get rides around. And I had no influence of just how violent, and that's the right word, a race car is, especially a single-seater.
You just can't understand it by watching it on TV.
You can't.
No.
People used to say to me, boy, you get excited. And I was like, yeah, because I'm trying to put across what the human inside is experiencing, because it really is adrenaline full. I mean, even on my passenger rides in rally cars, and I've been in a Formula One car, two-seater, Damon Hill took me around in a Minardi, and he said, don't forget to breathe. And I laughed.
Yep.
And about halfway around Donington, I went, because it is so, it takes your breath away, quite literally. Yeah. And it's all-consuming. I mean, it is violent, as I said. So, add the heat to that, add a big metal box, and it's lowering from side to side. Or it's two-way racing like this, and two side-by-side racing like this. There's the 57 and the 43 together on track. Love it.
Yeah, don't think for a second because the cars have power steering, it makes it very easy to drive. These cars are tough to get around fast. Although J.R. Hildebrand seems to be moving right up on the list, it sure is a great time to watch all of this.
Yeah, no question.
I watched Hildebrand yesterday, and I would imagine he's probably a second or two max off current pace of these NASCARs. He is a fantastic driver.
Did he do any NASCAR?
I didn't ask him.
I'm not sure if he did. I'm really not.
But he enjoys it.
Oh yeah.
I think the whole trick is how much money can you bring to the table.
Right.
It really boils down to it, and unfortunately, that's racing in general.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always has been, always will. I'm afraid. Absolutely, always has been. The day they go cheap racing will be a. What do they say? You want to get rich in motor racing?
Yes.
Start with $1 million.
Right, and then find another one.
Yeah. Quickly. Well, some really good racing here. There's the 28 going through shot. That's the Thunderbird. I think that's the. Oh, there's two 28. Excuse me. No, that's the Oldsmobile. That's the Pontiac 1980 Oldsmobile going through. Buddy Baker won the Daytona 500 in that in 1980.
So to finish the story real quick, when I did find the Earnhardt, or the gentleman approached me, that he ended up happening to be Dale Earnhardt's chef.
Ah.
And he traveled with Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt. He had a restaurant here in Sonoma, and he asked after the '94 season if he could have that car, and that's sort of how I ended up with it.
Yellow flag out.
Yeah, looks as though we've got a few problems out there, but everybody's still circulating anyway. There's Epsman, Ken Epsman in the number 9, just coming past our commentary position. We're just at the exit of 12, just onto the front straight, and passes our position now in the cause car. We're watching the 43, which is so iconic. Whoa! And round goes the 28, and luckily everybody avoids him. Shows you they're pushing there, doesn't it? We've had a few spinners today. What are the track conditions like? I guess you don't know because you haven't been out there.
This morning we were out. Yes.
Morning, yep.
It seemed to have more grip than I thought it would have.
Yeah.
With all the cars running, and between the weather and the different types of cars running and dropping oil and different rubber compounds, but it seemed to be very good. So.
Through goes the 12, the Buick Regal from 1988, being chased hard by the 75 of the 93 Ford Thunderbird, built by Butch Mock Motorsports.
Yeah, I bet these guys are feeling it right about now. It's got to be close to 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
I would imagine the track's pretty slick.
I was about to say that's probably another reason why we're seeing so many simple spins where it just seems innocuous. It's a mistake that people wouldn't normally make, but because of the conditions, people are just losing a little bit of grip here, and it's probably pretty.
Track temperatures certainly going up from this morning when I ran. So
well, they're describing it as an actual official heat wave here in California, and I suppose in October this is not the kind of conditions you'd expect.
It appears that we have quite a few safety vehicles on the track.
Yeah. They're trying to keep them going, I think. But, these guys are pretty sensible.
Well, they started. I want to get back to the historic group. There is a new group out here, and it's called Historic Car Racing Group, and they've been around for probably 25 years, and they've established a new board. We got a whole bunch of new drivers and cars, some really period correct cars. These have to be to the period and with nothing added that wasn't. And they're, like I said, the attraction to the younger crowd, which is a huge deal for us. This group will be invited to run at different events, and even with NASCAR when they come out here, I would imagine here in a year or two. So this is a great group. If anybody's out there who wants to get into this is you could probably find them on the website, but I want to put that out there for the group.
Yeah, and the combination of television and movie coverage of late, the current coverage of NASCAR is excellent on national television, Fox now with a deal, NBC obviously. So the coverage is still there. You mentioned the youth coming in to take part in events like this because of that, perhaps, because of the notoriety of these cars. but also compared perhaps to other historic racing communities, the NASCARs, because of the numbers of NASCARs over the years and because, you know, the amount of cars, there's probably plenty of stuff out there. And, of course, they're all stock cars, so the manufacturers all can get you something if you need it.
There are, and there's a lot of stuff out there. You'll see stuff go over the through the auctions, but most of the stuff, if you want to get it's got to be correct, and they're out there. But probably price point for, as Chris would probably tell you, that for getting into racing, this is really, really inexpensive, and it's a climbing market. And I think that the investment grade cars that are out there are only going to go up.
And I'm guessing that to drive them, you don't have to be a great driver, but to drive them fast, you do.
You do.
As with every race car out there.
That's true. Yeah, I know that's true. But, you know, you kind of look at a NASCAR and you think, oh, you know, it's not as intimidating as a single-seater when you first look at it because of the roof and all the rest of it. But I would have thought the nuances at the highest level.
You're a good driver till you're not.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But you fire these things up and you're inside one. You learn respect real quick because they are a beast.
Oh, they are. Absolutely.
And they really have a bad reputation of being big, clunky cars, but they really do handle extremely well.
Yeah. And I think
and
that
are
was
extremely
why
fast.
the road course the sort of lack of road courses used. I mean, they use Watkins Glen a lot. There's the yellow checker, so we have got a sort of caution finish to this. But yeah, you know, I think the road courses, they felt like NASCAR just didn't suit road courses, but the cars now show these road courses. Coda is a good example. You know, Coda is a bona fide Formula One and MotoGP circuit, but NASCAR have a great time there and they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson particularly,
very much so.
Chase Elliott love coming to Coda.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just it's a dream to be able to drive them. Chris would say the same, and just the history. When I get into a car and it's Dale's car, it's not my car. I'm not Dale, and I just want to preserve it and drive it safely.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it, isn't it? You're putting yourself in the seat of a little bit of history. Well, checker flag is out. Joshua Fiber has won. J.R. Hildebrand got all the way up to second place to get ahead of Mike Thurlow in the closing stages. Ken Epsman just behind him in the 9, then Mark Berardi behind him, and then Justin Hurtle behind him. We finished under caution, but we got a good look at these NASCARs. They'll be back out of there again. Any chance of we getting the old Dale Earnhardt car out?
They're working hard right now.
Okay.
Let's see. I'd rather be there than here.
No,
I
I'm
can tell
sure.
you that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, but it's nice and cool in here.
But it's great. I love you guys.
Half.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Thanks for the hors d'oeuvres and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we aim to please, that's for sure.
Well, we had a blast sitting with you and enjoying this all.
Thank you very much for coming in. Don't forget, Three Dog Garage if you want to go up there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
There you go. And my thanks again to Mike Parsons, who hopefully will get the car out, and what we want to see is a good old Dale Earnhardt run tomorrow if we can. Well, that's our NASCAR first qualifying race. They'll be back out in action tomorrow. Hopefully more cars involved. We'll take a short break from high above Sonoma. Join us for more from Velocity Invitational.